Recorded down at South by Southwest 2014, it is my social identity session, public, personal, and private. Glad all you came or stuck around since the last one was MIA for a few minutes. So we only had 15 minutes with this one. This one, disclosure now, is based on a book I'm finishing, so we did it as a feature 15. It's much longer if we want it to be, so I simplified this a lot. I changed it down to pay attention to the slides on this one as we go along. The idea is to show you a little bit about how we're messing up on social identity and what we think it is compared to what it really is. You can find me everywhere, and I write a lot about identity stuff online, but I do notes on everything if you need to find me. I'm on over 300 networks, so if you can't find me as I do notes, you're doing something wrong. I'd just like to point that out. So it's over 300 now. So let's get started into it since we only have 15. Public identity. So there's three parts of this we're going to talk about. Main one is public identity. A lot of us have a preconception of what public identity is. To us, public identity has a few pieces to it. First part, we think Twitter, right? What we talk about all the time. We may think about Instagram. I use Instagram constantly. Pictures, what we do. Right? We also think about things like Google+. Not everybody thinks about Google+, but the idea is it's public. It's what you do. What we're finding is we're building our identity based around content, and that's not really what social identity is. That's social content. Social identity is what we're going to dig into. That is what drives everything about this topic and how we're creating ourselves to be a very open security hole, which is why this whole feature 15 was grouped together, right? Everything's been on security. So this topic features everything about security. The next piece you would want to talk about after you do public, though, is what we call personal. Personal is more restricted. You invite people in to your arena. Think about it when someone comes up to you after they've known you for a while, right? They've known you on the public side, they've known you as a speaker, and they go, "Can I ask you a personal question?" They're about to breach the edge of what they know about you. They want to know a little bit more. So you invite them in. What are apps that we'd use for content for those? Well, there's a couple that came right up. First one would be Facebook, right? Facebook has a public side, things that you post publicly content, and then it has what you would consider the personal side, right? Maybe more about my family, maybe more about my pets, maybe more about the history. Picture all the questions that Facebook actually asks you now, and ponder the amount of information that not only you give them, but you make available through all these networks at the public and the personal level. So that's all content, though. That really isn't your identity, and that's where we start to break down the differences. So what we're going to do is walk through a path of how it all fits together, and then hopefully, if this turns out like we usually do in like the hour sessions of this, some of you will leave going, "He's crazy." Some of you will leave going, "I really need to change some things." And then there's a few of you that will be in here live changing things as I go through. I've actually had people in the sessions actually changing the way they do their work and content and deleting things. And I'm not saying delete content. I'm talking about identity. So let's break into what the pieces are. So what's inside of public truly? We already said it was things like Twitter, and it was things like Instagram, and it was things like Google+. But really, these are the pieces that are considered part of your social identity. Your email address. You're going to ask why that's important. We're going to show you how it maps. What city you live in, that's pretty important for your identity. Your birthday, your Google Voice number, right? Think about Google Voice in a minute and what it does for you. Some of you may or may not use Google Voice yet. The other one, favorite sports team. I usually put that one up there randomly and people question, what does that have to do with my social identity? Well, as we start building your identity on the back end, your persona, and that's a big key of this, we had it in the actual abstract, is the persona. You'll understand that all these drive how you gain access to your social content. So your identity is driven by how you access your content, not the content you put out, not the pictures, not the tweets, right? That's how people know you and your opinions. But the actual identity is in the back end, right? This is the pieces. So we'll jump over and say, well, then what would be personal? Well, when we get into personal, you would say, well, I should have more personal information. Well, no, we screw up. Notice they're green. So when you register for Facebook, don't most of you use the same email address that you use for the public sites? So you've already bridged a public site with your personal site by using the same email address. Well, most of you use the same birthday. I'll tell you right now on Facebook, my birthday is a lie, right? I get 2 birthdays a year. I get my real one, and then I get my Facebook birthday. And the Facebook birthday is when everyone gets a prompt, and they all say happy birthday. Then I have 4 really ignorant friends that post on my time, and they go, I know it's your real birthday, and I delete those posts. Why? I'm going to show you that missing piece in just a minute, because that's part of my identity. It has nothing to do with my social content. Why do you have to put your real information there? And what is Facebook prompting you for now? Phone number, right? Every time you log in, is this your phone number? Can you confirm your phone number? Give us your phone number. But think about your social identity. What does your phone number confirm for you? Let's jump ahead since we only have 15 minutes. If you have to confirm something with your credit card, what do they call to give a code number to? Your private phone number. Well, if it's Google Voice, that means it's on the web, which means it's accessible. You guys getting the idea already? So the identity is what I use to configure it. So what else may I throw in on this layer? I'm going to throw in another email address maybe. That one's I consider personal. I don't publish it on the web. IdoNotes at idonotes.com. It's on all my sites. You can reach me there, right? It's there. It's made to be public. A few friends know Chris at IdoNotes works too. And if you're techie, you would guess that. But the idea is that I have multiple email addresses. Personal cell, you might have the personal cell number, but it's not on the web. That's for friends. But we're going to dig in another layer in just a minute. Last part is like teen education. Things like questions Facebook Ask also rely heavily on resets. I didn't include a big section on that because of our time, but all this identity stuff is how you control access to that content. So what's missing? This is what we normally see, right? We normally see two circles, the public side, and we actually then see the personal side. The problem is with the way we do social content is we do this. We try to hide content inside of the public side. But it has nothing to do with my identity. The identity now I'm sharing between the two, right? We just showed that. We're sharing email address. I'm already trickling it down. So what do some of you do? I go, well, I'm going to be a little sneaky. I'm going to pull it out. Doesn't matter. If I gain access to your email, if I gain access to your Google Voice, if I gain access to something you've used on the public networks, I now have the ability to have your identity on the back end, meaning I can start assuming things about your accounts and your abilities, right? So what I want to go to is the next level, the one that never should be talked about with anybody outside of your significant other, whoever that may be, right? Or maybe a family member directly that takes care of things. That gets into what we call private. Private's hidden. Private's unavailable. Private never shows anywhere on the web. Private is things you've never done anywhere else on the web. What categories would I use for those? Well, I've already screwed up because how many of you have done this already? You've already used your real birthday or an email address from your private things. When I say private, there's 4 areas, and we'll talk about them: banking, healthcare, finance, credit cards. How many of you use, you have to say what it is, and if you want to raise your hand, I'll know just by looking, because I can see everyone back. See, the good news, if you're in the back, you can nod, and the people in front won't see you. The people in front will sit there very still. How many of you use the same email account, maybe for credit card sign up as well as for like Facebook? Yeah, there's a few. Raise your hand. Right, we've already screwed up, haven't we? Because if someone breaches that outside world, they've got my identity in my private world. So forget personal and public. We've already got into private just from there. Same thing with a real birthday. That's a security question on all of those, right? Why are we publishing our real birthday? Who cares? I don't know why we do it, but we do it every time. The same with an email address, same with that one. So what do we need to do? We need to jump ahead and we need to phase those out. So we need to build personas. So, like I said, I'm jumping through the slides a little bit. The idea of a persona is I have a public persona, which is fake, right? And then I have the private persona. You could build multiple layers, whatever you want, but the idea is when we're inside of this circle, everything in this circle should be isolated. Email address. This is something, and I was talking to Paul, who's sitting in the front, an email address, and he asked me directly when I was showing him the slides and kind of scaring him yesterday, he's like, well, wait a minute. So I have to create an address that I've never used anywhere. I have to register my banking, my healthcare, my finance, credit cards with an email address that I've never done, but I've already registered them with public addresses, right? So that means you have to go in, rip out those public addresses, and create something new. I have a private one that I use. Guess what? It never gets spam because I deselect the ability for them to send me third-party notifications and all that stuff. It doesn't get any mail but notices, oh, you're going to have a monthly bill payment, you're going to have whatever. That's all it gets. But the idea is it never shows on the public infrastructure side. I've never published it anywhere except to those 4 or 5 key areas about my life, right? So what's another trick that people do? Here's another one they do. Well, I'm just going to keep them separate. Totally. Personal, right, and public. Totally separate. But what happens is after a while you lose track, and this happens. Once again, you've blended what you thought was personal and public, and you can't remember which email or did I register with that phone number. I've shared identity across these networks. Another one they do, my favorite one, I just won't have much public information. I'll make it all pretty personal. No, that's content. That has nothing to do with identity. That means I'm sharing less content with the world, but I'm still using the same things on the back end to provide them authentication, right? That's a big difference between the two. So we got one more example before we go into, the other one is shrink everything, right? I'm not going to put any content out. Content doesn't matter. Unless you're showing things that could relate to your private side. How many of you have a rule for kids? Don't ever show where you go to school if you post anything online. Anybody have that? You tell your kids, don't show your teachers, don't show your friends, don't show where you go to school. Why? We consider their stuff private, but we post us at our kids' school, showing that means where we live, where the kids' school is, everything else, right? Think about that. We're now linking our private data out through public infrastructure again. And this relates to a few other areas. So let's talk about a real persona. A real persona has those few categories, right? Banking, healthcare, finance, credit cards, travel, anything that is detrimental to you in terms of internal infrastructure. Meaning, if I lose my Twitter account, well, that just sucks, right? But it's not really a major thing in your life. Really think about it. It's not a major thing. I still have my home. I still have my money. I still have everything else, right? If I happen to lose my Facebook account, well, it'll make my friends mad and they'll probably get hit by some spammer somewhere. That means they better be really smart. Once again, not detrimental. But if someone breaches into these areas, that's detrimental, right? The rest of it's just content. It's just social content. So we isolate it. So when we get in those areas by isolating it, we actually jump in and we use our real address. We have to. We use our real phone number, our real birthday, our real social security number. Now, right now, some of you should be saying, I've already made that mistake, right? Hopefully most of you are saying, I've already made that mistake. It took me over a year to clean up this mistake, right? The idea of learning that I provided this information. That was the whole thing. So what do we do next? We build a fake persona. You have to do it. You have to think in terms of public terminology, in terms of public access, in terms of public finding you things, right? If you go on, where would I use them? Any new social site I get, any very public site, anything where no real info is needed for anything, I've built a fake persona. Guess what? It's identical across all those sites. I use the same fake birthday. I use the same fake pet name. I use the same fake, for those in America, if you're from the US, the same high school mascot. Now, we do a little social engineering when I do the hour session. I knew I didn't have time and I didn't know who was coming to it. But when I do the hour session, I will literally walk out, and most of you I will talk to for a while before the session. And walking up as an example of some of the guys, we start talking and I'll slide in something about cars, right? Teenagers, first cars. Most of you would tell me, my first car was a 68 Monte Carlo in red. And a couple guys are shaking their head, right? What did I just give? What did I just get from them? Security questions. Things I would use to unlock accounts to my social content or access, including my private data, right? Mother's maiden name, all those stupid questions they ask you. They ask you those same ones in LinkedIn. They ask you the same ones in Facebook. They ask you the same ones in Twitter. If you need to unlock your account, you provide security questions. So whenever I'm anywhere on the public side, I make sure I have a fake persona. Now, you may laugh, but guess what? I have the best old cat from when I was a kid with my favorite first pet's name, right? They don't know that, but I know I use it at every single site on the public, because if you get it, who cares? You're not going to affect my private stuff, all right? So we build all these pieces into it. Google Voice is a good choice. Maiden names, whatever you want to put in there, those are all good choices. Now, here's another one, what I want you to start thinking about doing, since we're down the last couple slides in a couple minutes. If you follow this type of idea, where you actually have put your personal information and content inside and hooked it all together with the public side, well, you're going to need to pull it apart a little bit first, right? But you could still use the same persona. What you have to start doing now, and this is the whole point of this topic, is you have to start building that little circle, right? Because once you build that circle, by detaching all that information from the public infrastructure, you can slide it out. This is where you detach your banking, your finance, your healthcare, your credit card, your travel, anything that would be detrimental to you as a person. Forget social. Anything that's detrimental to you as a person, you can now pull out to secure and isolate that data. So that means a unique email address that's never been used on a public site or shared anywhere outside of these companies. Probably your home phone number, or a phone number you're going to use only for this purpose. I've seen some people do it in reverse. They've used their cell phone so much on sites, they have gotten a secondary Google Voice number just to put onto their private side, thinking that's the only way I can now isolate the two. They had to do it in backwards. It doesn't matter which way you do it, right? So as a joke, and it's hilarious we did it, but it started being kind of funny, is we built a site called My Fake Persona. The idea was is that people could go in as a joke and just click a button, and we're building more and more attributes. But the joke was, click a button, and it'll give you a fake persona. Male, female, pet name, first name, last name, mother's maiden name. It just builds a persona for you that you could use on any site you wanted to. You may laugh about it, but now that you're thinking more about the information you've already put out there, most of you have shared everything anyone in this room would need to access your private data. All right? So the last piece, am I right? Oh, look at that. We're down to the minute. So as I said when we started, this was an hour session we crammed into 15 minutes. So luckily we're the last session because they're not going to care if we go a few minutes if you have questions. Right, ladies? Even though, or do you have somewhere to be? Look, you have nowhere to be. We'll stay. So the idea is the end where you find me. So 15 minutes, the idea of this one, summary, you already have your public, you already have your personal, you need to start creating your private identity, social identity, not content, identity. You need to split off anything you've shared across those networks into something isolated to make sure you can secure basically what runs your life, right? Banking, finance, and healthcare. So what questions do you all have since we have a few minutes? How to do it, where to start, anything at all? Yes? Either one of you get...
The real information goes with the most important, the financial health,
so,
the real stuff goes in that bucket.
Correct, and the question on that is a great answer is because for healthcare, for banking, for loans, for credit, you have to use your real information, right? They check you. They use that information of your birth date, your social security number. So yes, you do have to use that in the real. Question is, phone number and email address, those you can kind of fudge around with. But the other stuff you have to use in the real. And in front had one.
Probably a good follow-up to that. These companies probably eventually want to start building into the social and stuff that happens when you're banking. These companies
Luckily, in most countries, and I present globally, so most countries have very secure standards around private data. Not personal, not public, private data. So like social security numbers, things like that. Email addresses, they don't. Phone numbers, they don't. They sell those, right? But things like social security numbers, birth dates, things like that, those are supposed to be protected. So they shouldn't be able to get to those. Like I said, you may have to think about the opposite of, I may need to create another email address that's used for stuff. I never like a page of any business only because I don't like people to know where I'm associated. So if you look at my Facebook page, which I do post on public, I never like any company name for fear in my mind that, oh, they may think I actually use that service. And that's not a scary thing. It's just like, who cares if I like it or not? It doesn't help me in any regards. It doesn't benefit me, right? If you think about it. The only way it benefits me is if they're sending me information that gives me discounts and coupons, but I can find another way to do that. Public email address. Yep. Then they're doing something wrong. Anything else, guys? Yes?
What happens when your bank is hacked and then it goes public?
Yeah, so you get stuck with that one. So we actually had a credit card place for us that's been hacked twice. So but luckily for them, the same thing happened is they took the numbers and not the personal data. They take the personal data, you're going to have to do something drastic like watch credit and stuff. There's no way around that. If they've gotten to data. Mine was just numbers. That's all they cared about was numbers. They could care less who you were. They just wanted a list of numbers they could sell, right? So we had 3 credit cards. But yeah, with that one, you're stuck with credit card issues, right? I mean, credit history issues for the U.S. Yes, sir?
How about the Adobe breach? I feel like me and almost everybody I know got, and now randomly my name.
Well, so you bring up something I didn't cover here is the Adobe breach was backwards, but I don't access my private sites on public computers, meaning even work and things like that. So I didn't have any computers that had that type of access, luckily, for the Adobe breach. He's asking, so they were able to hack in, or it's reverse. I do, and I didn't touch on that, I actually do a lot of my stuff on my own laptop only, on my own networks only, and the last guy was up doing the Wi-Fi, was awesome. There's an app called Cloak that I use. It's on your mobile device. It actually throws you through VPN tunnels only that cloaks everything about your device. So it's the opposite. So I use Cloak whenever I need to do banking mobily. Even though I have the mobile app, I turn on Cloak, so I never do it on open networks, which is good because it creates a VPN tunnel and then SSL to the bank. So it hides it both, way in the back. So that's a direct product question, LifeLock. Let's do it this way. Do I believe in the ones that notify you of things that happen? Let's do it. Is that better? Just so we don't talk about a company in particular, because I know someone's recording something. Yes, I believe that some services that provide the watching of your data is important, but there are 2 or 3 services that you can do for free if you just set it to remind yourself to do it. Like Quizzle. They'll do your credit score reporting and histories and stuff every 6 months for free. No questions asked, don't have to buy anything, never sign up for anything, for free. You have to provide them personal data, but they use the clearinghouse, so they're secure. I don't subscribe to any of the services only because I keep track of those, and I've isolated things now. But if you're in fear of those, a temporary service never hurts, right, to watch your stuff. What else do you all have? Because they're saying stop. If you need me, I'll be standing up here for a few till we have to go. Thank you, everybody. Yeah. You're fine. We're done.